Hey everyone, happy Friday. High five to everyone. Hope you had a great week. I have an amazing guest today, Michael Warburton. He is the director, looking right at you. He is the director of Parkwide Communications for the Balboa Park Cultural Partnership. And Michael is a special guest because we used to work together actually 20 years ago. I can't even keep track. A long time ago.
Long time ago, yes.
We both worked at the zoo, and he was the associate director of communications for the world famous San Diego Zoo, and now he's in charge of communications for the world famous Balboa Park Cultural Partnership. And what's interesting about this, and one of the reasons why I wanted to have Michael on, other than being a great guy and very skilled in his craft, the purpose of these interviews are to shine a spotlight on leaders within purpose-driven, socially conscious organizations. And so there's a lot of good going on in the community. I know with COVID-19 and with all the political theater and with the racial justice issues and the economics, there's just a lot of negative stuff going on right now. And the goal of this is to just put a spotlight on some of the cool things that are happening. So with that, the partnership, I would love for you to share in your own words, Michael. There's like 26 organizations, right? Like, how do you get them to play together in the same sandbox? So maybe you can just cue that up. Like, how did the partnership, what is it exactly, and how did it come together? And how did your role come about?
How long is this?
30 seconds or less, yeah.
Right, yeah. So the partnership came about because at one point, first of all, I'll talk about that. The park is a very complex ecosystem. I call it a master brand with no single master, because Balboa Park is a city park, right? And there are a number of nonprofit organizations in it and also affecting the park. And all of them might have different focuses, agendas, goals, and things like that. And for a period of time, there wasn't a lot of collaboration with them. But at one point, several of the organizations felt that there were opportunities to do things like maybe save money on paper if they collaborated, or things like that. And so it really started from a root of what are some commonalities we have as organizations, and what are some needs that we might have, and how can we be more efficient from that, right? And over time, what that grew into is this organization that we have today. And we have several different facets of what we do that are really meant to help elevate, support, and bring, raise the bar essentially for those organizations that are members of ours and in the park. And they're not all museums. It's really interesting. The mix is very diverse. So you have the zoo as a member of ours, which has a big budget, thousands of employees. And then you might have a small arts organization that has maybe 4 employees, right? So very diverse group, but there are commonalities across the board. And so what we do now as an organization is really focus on several key things. One of them is advocacy on their behalf. So how can we work with government agencies, other nonprofits, other interested groups around the city on really improving arts advocacy, arts and culture advocacy, right? Where one might not have a strong voice, all of us together can make some noise. So besides advocacy, there are efforts too where for the past 10 years, we had a program that revolved around sustainability and things around sustainability for the different organizations, and how could they all improve their energy use and things like that. And that was with a partnership with SDG&E. So you kind of get a sense of a theme here, right? Where what are some commonalities that can affect them all, improve everything for them. Our organization also runs a program called the Explorer Pass. Awesome program. It's a multi-museum visit pass, essentially, for the whole park. And it essentially relies on all of these institutions participating and being a great place to visit. and you couple that together with an opportunity to just have one ticket and visit, it's great for the museums. That's because cool. They earn incremental revenue, plus the visitors get a really great deal on having an awesome day in the park.
That's awesome. And so your role was created to just kind of help promote. Is that the main thing? Is it more publicly, promote to the public, or is it more communications internal between these institutions?
Yes. So a few years ago, there was a conscious decision to really think about how do we position the park as a destination overall, and not just one place to visit here, one place to visit there. And having come from the zoo as a big destination, it was really like a lot of the same strategies, tactical executions, things like that I had used at the zoo would totally translate into the park. As well as the fact that, like we can do a better job with communications and so forth if we had a little bit more glue tying us together from a communication standpoint. And so all of those things kind of led to this position being created. And I also have a partner in crime at the San Diego Tourism Authority who also works on cultural tourism, and we work together quite closely.
That's awesome. So what you're in a unique position, having a pulse on all these cultural institutions. So what are some trends that you've noticed? And you could divide this up pre-COVID and now, if it's changed. But what trends have you noticed?
Yeah. So the pre-COVID and COVID thing, certainly with COVID, it's forced a really hard look at prioritization, right? And what are the core functions, and how do organizations deliver on their mission at the very core? It's something you should be doing all the time, but certainly COVID has sparked that, and also obviously consolidation of staffing and things like that have had to occur. I've noticed a new level, a heightened level of collaboration that didn't exist before, a willingness to share information back and forth and help each other. A good example of that would be I help facilitate a marketing and public relations group of all the marketing folks in the park, and we get together weekly. And during this period of time, organizations had to really pivot and figure out how to deliver and engage with their constituents without being open. And so as people develop new digital content and techniques and tactics, it was a great group, and it still is, for bouncing ideas off each other, hearing how things went and whether or not they should do it, if it would be good for them. So that's just one example of where leaders from around the park have really started collaborating in just a new level. But pre-COVID, there were a number of shifts happening at the marketing position across the organizations in the park. Change over, change out, people moving into leadership roles in the marketing teams. So that's kind of a brief snapshot of where things were in my little circle here in the park.
Yeah, so maybe in some ways it's, I use this very loosely, but a blessing in disguise in terms of how it's accelerated some of the collaboration, maybe that might have happened. Maybe
potentially. It's never a blessing in disguise when we have the situation that's happening like it is.
Right, exactly. Yeah. That's why it kind of very.
Yeah. Even a good day now, like a great day of visitation in the park, is a fraction of what it normally would be. Yeah. Right. So we're still in that situation. But to your point, it's raised a little bit of awareness of strengths, of weaknesses, of ways that people could do things a little bit differently. Yeah.
And so I'm wondering, this is just kind of learn a little more, because they all these institutions have been hit financially, right? Just as like many other businesses. And so for the survival, just basic survival of these organizations, have you seen some really unconventional types of collaborations in terms of either revenue share or in terms of human resources, right? Sharing human resources. I'm just curious.
Those types of things have been talked about. Less about sharing of human resources, although these are the kinds of things that our organization is always kind of evaluating, like a shared services model. Are there potentially ways we can help organizations with a shared service? That hasn't really been a strong change in the organizations. As far as partnerships go, I would say that there are partnerships among organizations in the park that are really happening. And I'm always a fan of that kind of stuff happening anyway. So a good example would be like the Mingei International Museum right now is they're undergoing massive renovations, and they have an amazing collection of the Japanese cat sculptures that have the paw up, right? And so they know all the lore and everything behind that. And the Japanese Friendship Garden in the park has been open, and so the Friendship Garden actually has on display this collection from the Mingei.
Oh,
right?
Wow.
Yeah, so really interesting ways to handshake and collaborate, whether it's from a product standpoint, like a exhibition or things like that. And also for us, like we've made the shift and pivot to producing content about partners in the park and virtual things that are going on, because some of them may not have the ability to create videos, for example, about education programs that are happening online. So we do like little roundups and push those out through social and things like that.
Yeah. So you're exposed to a lot of different causes within the park, and obviously probably outside. Do you have what's like one of your favorites? I won't ask you for the favorite, so you're not on the spot. But like, what's one of your favorite causes that you're most passionate about?
Well, I kind of expected you to ask something like this, and it made me think about the fact that I'm drawn towards organizations that really harness and believe in the power of collaboration. Where I'm at right now working at the Cultural Partnership, its purpose is collaboration and supporting organizations in the park. I'm also very involved with the Better Business Bureau at the regional level with Pacific Southwest. That's a 501c3, it's an association. And they do amazing things to help both consumers as well as businesses, on the ethical side of things. But other programs, for example, they have there was a Main Street Matters program where they raised money and did micro grants to businesses. There was a program where they have been running a partnership with GoDaddy and had sort of a Main Street incubator program, right? So really cool stuff happening with that. But then at the national level, I'm involved with the Better Business Bureau Institute for Marketplace Trust. And this is a 501c3, so a nonprofit. And they develop programs, for the most part, around consumer education, right? Protecting against scams or things like that. And also reporting. So what are typical scams that affect military families, and creating reporting around that and sharing that out. So those are some good examples. Also, I'm involved with One Club San Diego, which it's supposedly the oldest business association west of the Mississippi. And it's funny that it's come full circle. I've been involved with those guys.
What did you say?
It's the One Club San Diego. It was originally founded as the San Diego Advertising and Sales Club in 1911 to support the 1915 exposition in Balboa Park. So that's why it's almost come full circle for me, because
amazing.
They were founded to support Balboa Park, and here I am working in the park. So, but that's an awesome group too, because it's all people that have a creative slant and focus around advertising and communication. So always being attached to nonprofits. I love that group because they're not all nonprofits. Most of them are agency folks and so forth. And it allows me to kind of gut check, what am I doing? Is it best in class, regardless of for-profit and nonprofit, right?
Yeah.
And that type of thing. So yeah, a lot of great organizations.
That's awesome. So shifting gears a little bit, and I always have to ask ask this of my guests because as a career coach, right? What's been your favorite job, and or what would you say is your sweet spot?
There are favorite parts of every job, right? That
Mhm.
sounds like a weak answer, so I will go for it. Um, you know, Managing the advertising for San Diego Zoo Global, so specifically the advertising for the zoo and the safari park,
Uh-huh.
that was a blast. And I'll tell you why. Not, I mean, on the surface, yeah, it's fun making advertising, and there would be days where I'm spending all day with cheetahs on a commercial shoot, right? Like,
Nice.
how cool is that? But I think the deeper answer to that is it was really cool working through vision and to execution on ideas, right? On creative and engaging content. And so being able to really shepherd that process soup to nuts, that was hugely rewarding. And at the end of the day, too, we had really great content. It was well received. We won a bunch of awards for the work. So just all around, very fulfilling, super fun stuff. Yeah.
I'll never forget. I mean, the advertising was very memorable. Like when you would leave the San Diego airport, when I go and pick someone up from the airport and come back, there was always that billboard painted on that one wall. I don't think it's there anymore. And then there's the billboards along the 5 freeway along Mission Bay and just always very catchy. I think it was on Gold's Gym at the time. And, just very creative, very catchy. And
Yeah, and that was kind of the thing, right? We wanted to have memorable creative because it makes you think about the zoo more often and makes you want to visit. And from a strategy standpoint, San Diego actually didn't get to see the bulk of the great creative because our focus quite often was like LA, Orange County, and regional markets. San Diego, we had a lot of members from San Diego. So it was mostly reminding San Diegans to come visit, but really putting that stuff into LA and Orange County and places like that. Your question about the sweet spot, I think there's two things that come to mind. One is just I really like to work in a group and rally people around a common idea and vision, and also really help people see where their piece is such a major contribution. And that's pretty awesome, like integrating folks and their skill sets and having this awesome like campaign, right? And the other piece to it is problem solving for lack of resources, right? Like being scrappy and having to think about stuff. I'll tell you, like the zoo advertising budget when it came to nonprofits was sizable, but I would do competitive analysis and competitive set would spend 8 times what we were. So we still had to be very crafty, scrappy with our budget and creative in how we used our resources.
That's nice. And that might be part of your answer to my next question. But I'm curious, like how have you grown in the last year? I mean, just professionally as a leader in the community. I mean, you've been tested.
Yeah, we've all been tested in so many ways we never expected. And all those things with COVID, to me personally, nothing overshadows Black Lives Matter. I have great respect and appreciation for Black colleagues, but I hadn't necessarily paused to think about what their journey was like to get to what they're doing now. And I think that's been very powerful, right? Connecting with people in that way. And it has made me want to be a participant in moving the needle, in making sure that wherever I'm at, whatever environment I'm in, whatever cultural environment, or if I'm able to influence policies, like how can that be involved in what I'm doing? Yeah. Huge,
That's
man.
awesome. Yeah. I mean, I share that with you. In fact, my laptop is propped up a little bit by a book on white fragility, right? Is the name of the book. And I've been educating myself as well, right, as a white male, and it's and lending support to Black colleagues and where I can, but learning, right? So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, and
thanks for
like
bringing that up.
you and I, like we've experienced judgment and bias in our lives, but on the
Right.
surface, there are people who won't know what the things are they should be biased about. But we can't, when you're Black, you are going to meet and encounter people who will have a bias just because of your skin color, and you can't change that, or that's not hidden.
Yeah. And for us, you don't know what you don't know. And it's just like in the workplace, when I work with leaders or teams or whomever, we all have blind spots, or I'm doing the career coaching, right? Myself included. We all have blind spots. And, sometimes it takes others to point it out. You don't know. We might be, even if you're trying to live the best life you can lead and your values are very noble and all, I mean, that's all fine. At the same time, we still have blind spots with things that we do that we're not aware, or things we're not doing that maybe we could be doing. So
yeah, as a leader, I firmly believe that being a servant leader is the right approach, for one, but also operating without hidden agendas and trusting people and being trustworthy, like absolutely critical for me.
yeah. So Michael, what's something? This is kind of more of a fun thing. What's interesting quirk that you have, or maybe a hidden talent that's not as well known to others?
Let's see. Well, I love Lego, right? So that is a replica of a Swiss, it's called a crocodile locomotive. I like Lego trains and modular buildings.
Oh my
So
gosh,
very
right.
cool stuff. Yeah. And then I think another one might be that I'm an auction hunter, right?
Oh,
I love, I love seeking out auctions, and I've bought a house and a car and all kinds of daily use things at auctions. It's pretty cool. And, there's the thrill of the deal.
that's really cool. Yeah. So, do you have any favorite auction spots, or do you like to keep those secret?
Yeah, you kind of have to keep those a little bit secret, just because then they get flooded with competition for bids, right?
Yeah. All right. I won't press you. I'm not. It's like giving him a favorite restaurant or favorite spot. You're like, you don't want to give it up.
Right.
Well, anything else? Very much appreciative for you being on here. Anything else that you would like to add, or anything coming up with the partnership that maybe the community might want to know about?
Yeah. Thanks for that. Couple of things. So the first thing is support arts and culture in San Diego. Even with the relief that the city had provided for some businesses, nonprofits weren't allowed to participate in that. So, anytime you can support arts and culture moving forward, please do so. And ask your council members to also support arts and culture for San Diego. And then the other thing is just, this is a stressful time. Tomorrow is World Mental Health Day. So, this year in particular is probably the most important with COVID and other things going on. So I just ask for everybody to, operate with love and empathy with each other.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, this has been an awesome conversation. Thank you so much, Michael, for joining today. And thank you all out there who dropped in to listen. Feel free to add your comments or questions. If you're watching on Facebook or LinkedIn or YouTube, we're broadcasting on all three of those channels. So thank you all. And just as a reminder, I will be on next Tuesday for the next installment of engaging your employees. So as a leader, so if you're a leader out there, if you're a new leader, if you're even a seasoned leader, what are some ways you can do that? In fact, the topic's going to be around how to have a constructive career conversation. That's going to be the topic coming up. So with that, and then we'll have additional interviews on other Fridays. We've got some exciting guests, just like Michael here, coming up. And so make sure you tune in. So thank you all.
Thanks, Mikey. Thanks, everybody. Take care.